Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, students and physics enthusiasts. Interference and diffraction demonstrate wave behavior of light, while emission and absorption of photons demonstrate particle behavior. If light waves can behave like particles, can the particles of matter behave like waves? Find out by sticking around till the end of this video. Watch and learn. This is the problem. The m equals 1 intensity maximum in an electron diffraction experiment occurs at an angle of 48.0 degrees. The accelerating voltage of the electrons is 36.5 volts. Find letter A, the kinetic energy of each electron in joules. Question letter B, find the electron de Broglie wavelength. And question letter C, find the spacing between atoms in the target. We are given the angle at which the m equals 1 intensity maximum occurs. That is, theta equals 48.0 degrees. The accelerating voltage, denoted by capital B's of BA, all right, is equal to 36.5 volts. And we are asked to determine the following. In part A, the kinetic energy of an electron. In part B, the de Broglie wavelength, which is also the wavelength of the electron. And in part C, the spacing between atoms in the target, denoted here by small letter d. De Broglie's idea is that a particle behaves like a wave. That is, it must have a frequency and a wavelength. But his bold idea was made at a time, specifically in 1924, when there was no direct experimental evidence that particles have wave characteristics. But within a few years, this idea was resoundingly verified by a diffraction experiment with electrons. So illustrated here in this figure 1, all right, a similar experiment done by two American physicists, Davison and Germer. Okay, this was in year 1927. They were studying the surface of a piece of nickel, a crystalline metal. Okay, by directing a beam of electrons at the surface and then observing how many electrons bounce off at various angles. So the procedure goes something like this. A heated filament right, emits electrons. And then the electrons are accelerated, okay, by electrodes. So we have here the cathode and the anode. And the electron beam is directed at a crystal, which is the nickel metal. So the electrons strike the nickel crystal, and then uh, scattered electrons are detected by a movable detector, okay, at various angles. So take note, the voltage source here provides the accelerating potential difference or voltage so that the electrons speed up in moving from the cathode point A uh, towards the anode point B. The sample of nickel is polycrystalline, consisting of many randomly oriented microscopic crystals bonded together. As a result, the electron beam reflected diffusely, like light bouncing off a rough surface, with a smooth distribution of intensity as a function of the angle theta. During their initial experiment, an accident occurred that allowed air to enter the vacuum chamber, and an oxide film formed on the metal surface. So to remove this film, Davison and Germer baked the sample in a high temperature oven. Unknown to them, this had the effect of creating large regions within the nickel with crystal planes that were continuous over the width of the electron beam. Relative to the electrons, the angle looked like a single, or the sample looked like a single crystal of nickel. When these observations were repeated uh, using this sample, the results were quite different. Now, strong maxima in the intensity of the reflected electron beam occurred at specific angles. In contrast to the smooth variation of angle that Davison and Germer had observed before the accident. The angular position of the maxima depended on the accelerating voltage, capital B sub BA, used to produce the electron beam. Davison and Germer were already familiar with de Broglie's hypothesis, and they noticed the similarity of this behavior to X-ray diffraction. This was not the effect they had been looking for, but they immediately recognized that the electron beam was being diffracted. Indeed, they had discovered a very direct experimental confirmation of the wave hypothesis. And as illustrated in figure 2, atoms in a surface or surface plane are arranged in rows with a distance small d that can be measured by X-ray diffraction techniques. These rows act like a reflecting diffraction grating, the angles at which strong reflection occurs are the same as for the grating with center to center distance d between its slits. The angles of maximum reflection are given by the equation lambda times m equals small d times sine of the angle theta, where theta here is formed by the reflected beam and the normal line perpendicular to the surface. M, of course, refers to the first order maximum. So, moving on to our computations for part A, computing the kinetic energy of the electron using the formula Ke of the electron is equal to the product of its charge E and the accelerating voltage, capital B of BA. That is, Ke equals 1.602 times 10 raised to the negative 19 coulomb. That's the charge of an electron times the given accelerating voltage, 36.5 volts, which of course will give us the amount of the kinetic energy of the electron when it hits its target, equal to 5.85 times 10 raised to the negative 18 joules in three significant figures. In part B, computing the de Broglie wavelength of the electron using the equation lambda sub E equals the Planck's constant divided by the square root of twice the product of uh, the mass of the electron and its kinetic energy. All right? So the kinetic energy is also expressed as the product of the charge of an electron, that's denoted by letter E, and the accelerating voltage, capital B of BA. So, substituting our given quantities, we have the de Broglie wavelength, or the wavelength of the electron, equals 6.626 times 10 to the or raised to the negative 34 joules second. That's the value of the Planck's constant, divided by the square root of 2 times 9.11 times 10 raised to the negative 31 kilogram, which is the mass of an electron, and then multiplied by the kinetic energy earlier computed in part A, 5.85 times 10 raised to the negative 18 joules. So doing our math, we find the value of the de Broglie wavelength of an electron, or lambda sub E, equals 0.203 times 10 raised to the negative 9 meter, which of course can be expressed as 0.203 nanometer in three significant figures. Finally, in part C, we are asked to find the separation distance, denoted by small letter d between atoms in our or in the target. And based on the equation, m times lambda sub e equals d times sine of the angle theta. So we isolate this separation distance d and come up with a working formula. D equals m times lambda sub e divided by sine of the angle theta. Substituting, we have d equals 1, 1 being the value of the maximum, all right? And then times the computed de Broglie wavelength of the electron, 0.203 times 10 raised to the negative 9 meters, divided by sine of the angle 48.0 degrees. Right? So this simplifies now to small d equals 0.273 times 10 raised to the negative 9 meters, or we can also express that as 0.273 nanometer in 3 significant figures. Giving emphasis on the key concept that we applied in this problem, we say that electrons and other subatomic particles have both particle properties, such as kinetic energy and momentum, and wave properties, like a frequency and a wavelength. Like a photon, the wavelength of a particle is inversely proportional to its momentum. Okay? Emphasized in this equation, lambda is equal to the Planck's constant h divided by the momentum of the particle. Unlike a photon, the wavelength of a non-relativistic particle is inversely proportional to the square root of its kinetic energy. And that is summarized in this equation. Lambda equals Planck's constant divided by the square root of twice the product of the electron's mass and its kinetic energy, expressed as E times capital B of AC. So that concludes our video tutorial for this topic. Mabuhay till the next episode. MashaAllah. Thank you very much for your indulgence. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Alhamdulillah.